I've passed the break-in period, so I definitely plan on doing an oil change within the next like 100 or so miles. I was gonna try to do it like right at the 620 mile mark, but I just think that's a little excessive, especially if I'm not hammering on the car yet. But definitely a oil change is in its near future. So I've already put in, I think 2 tanks of, well, I guess 3 if you count the one from the dealership. So I'm already almost done with my 3rd tank of gas, which is about a little over 600 miles or so. One thing is, I mean, don't expect this car to have good gas mileage at all. I mean, it has decent gas mileage on like the highway or any other like state roads where you're going like between 50 and 70. I mean, then you can easily get over 30 miles a gallon, but any other time you're probably going to be around 20. I've had this car for a little over 2 weeks now, and I have to say I love everything about it. There are little things here and there that I wish would be better. I mean, but they're just more nitpicking. It definitely will bring a smile to your face when you drive it. You can still hear the blow-off valve a little bit. Like everything in this car feels very mechanical, and I think like that's something I really like about this car. Like the shifter feels very direct. Even though it goes through linkage and stuff like that, it still feels like clunky, but it feels clunky in kind of a good way. And inside the cabin, I have to say, like, the exhaust note sounds really good. It's not obnoxiously loud, but I do know driving every once in a while, like on the highway, there is somewhat of a drone that you wouldn't usually hear in a normal like Corolla. Obviously, it's a much louder exhaust than what that is. To me, I don't mind the louder exhaust, so it doesn't bother me. And obviously, for my last Corolla, it's actually much quieter. So, but if you come from like a stock Corolla to this, it is much louder than the normal Corolla. And something else too that I didn't think I would like that much, but I turn it on every single time I get in the car, which is the auto rev matching. I have to say that it's something that I didn't think I needed, but I mean, it makes your rev matching perfect every single time. So any downshifting or anything like that is very smooth. And like I said, I'm used to kind of doing it myself on all my other cars, but this car, it's super nice to just not even think about it, just press the clutch in, downshift, and then it auto rev matches for you. I have had an issue where I was driving, I was in 4th gear, and I wanted to go to 5th gear, and I went straight to 3rd gear, and luckily I wasn't driving super quick, and I would hope that this thing has some safety feature in it, but when I did that, before even letting off the clutch, it rev matched like way higher than I would have wanted to go, because I was probably going around like 55, 60 miles an hour when it did that, and it like didn't get quite to red line, but it revved way, especially in the break-in period. I didn't expect it to do something like that, but it will, if it's in a gear that it thinks it can go to, it definitely will automatically rev match for you, even if it's ridiculously high. I hope there is some type of safety feature in there where once you get to a certain point and you downshift, it realizes that the RPMs are too high for what it is. I haven't experimented, and I don't know if I want to experiment, but that could be an issue if there's not a safety factor behind the rev matching. This car definitely handles like really good, and I noticed a difference too, because you can go from eco, normal, and sport, and the sport definitely stiffens up the steering even more and makes it a little bit more enjoyable to carve around some turns and stuff like that. But even just in normal, it feels really good. One other thing too that I have read a lot of people talk about is clutch issues on these cars. I hear people talking about them going out at 10,000 miles. I don't know what to think about it. I know some people said the dealership will cover it, others will not. Some people say it's their driving habits, some people say it's not, some people say they've been driving manual for 20 years. It's really hard to actually judge if it's the car or if it's the driver, because obviously the clutch can go either way. I'm hoping that it's the driver. We will find out. I'm not new to driving manual cars, but this is not my first manual car either. Those are really, and then one other issue that I've heard about is the rear differential overheating, but that's mainly on track use, so whether or not you actually track your car, it might not even make a difference. And I hear that there might be a fix to that sooner or later. But with the initial 650 miles that I have on this car, it has driven perfect, no problems. I have been not babying it, but been keeping the RPMs lower than about 5,000, been trying to keep it around 5,000 RPMs. There is really no threshold of where you actually need to be, but I just make sure that I'm not cruising in the same gear for long periods of time, and been pretty much driving it as a daily for commutes. And another, I don't want to say complaint, but one other thing about these cars is they are noisy. The engine is very ticky. I hear the clutch also tends to make noises, especially when it's not pressed in versus when it's pressed in. Some people say it's a problem, other people say it's normal. I think just the way Toyota has designed this, I think it's normal for these cars to sound the way they are. Because remember too, Toyota uses a lot of older technology, so they're not putting in fancy transmission, fancy clutches or anything like that. And so I think it's just all around just a noisy car and not much that you can do about it. Some people might not like that. Other people like it because it's more of like a raw feeling. So like I said, I don't mind it. I'm used to older cars, so older cars always ticked and sounded different and never sounded perfect. So, but I understand having a brand new car and it always sounds like there almost is an issue, but it's normal for that. But again, this is a 3-cylinder engine. It runs slightly different than a normal 4-cylinder engine, so it's going to have slightly different components that will keep it running as smooth as it can. And one other thing too that I love about this car is the interior. I think it just looks perfect. It's not super plain, but it's not like over the top, buttons all over the place, fancy, anything. I mean, I think too, especially going with the premium or the circuit, having the nicer Alcantara and leather seats really makes and brings this car together and kind of values it. Like, I look at it as it brings a purpose of that $40,000 price tag to this car. Rather, getting the cloth seats kind of puts it down lower, just like a normal Corolla. But that is something that I love about this interior of the premium, is just the way the seats and everything looks and blends together. I think it looks perfect. So whether or not I would love to have a more accent color like red or something, but that was obviously saved for the circuit and the Morizo edition. So having the base white stitching is nice, but it's super bland. So that would be the only other thing I would say. But other than that, I think the interior is a great looking car. And something else I have to say is it's a hatchback, so it's fairly practical for a everyday car. I know you do lose some floor space because of everything else on the GR, but it's reasonable enough space. Don't expect to put a bunch of stuff back here, but it definitely makes it practical. Definitely exceeds a supercar or anything like that, but don't expect it to be a nice big hatchback like the Toyota Matrix that they used to have. But it definitely has a decent amount of space for what it is used for. But my overall impressions on this car are actually fairly high. I love everything about it. There isn't one thing I found that I hate completely. Like I said, there's lots of little things that I would nitpick on this car, but overall, definitely worth it. One big thing that I hate is the amount of brake dust on the wheels. That's just kind of what happens when you have more of a track focused car. The only thing that I could worry about is the longevity of this car, because this is a fairly new engine from Toyota. It is about 4 years old, but so far there have not been any major issues with the engine itself. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are new, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.